I cheated on my husband with two of his soccer friends, and I loved how they made me feel, but now my life is a living hell because of that betrayal. I'm sitting on a creaky sofa in a borrowed apartment that smells of dampness and memories that don't belong to me. The light filters dimly through a torn curtain, and the silence is so heavy I can almost touch it. My phone sits on the table, turned off, because I can't bear the messages that keep coming. Insults, threats, words that cut like knives. Whore, disgrace, you deserve this. A year ago, my life was a dream. Now, it's a hell I built myself that I'm not trying to justify what I did, but I need to tell my truth, if only to understand how I got here, how one stupid decision destroyed everything I had. I don't know when it all started to crumble, but I know exactly when I realized there was no going back. It was the night Andres, my husband, looked at me with eyes I didn't recognize. He didn't yell, didn't break anything, didn't insult me. He just stared, as if seeing a stranger, and said, "I don't know who you are." Then he grabbed his jacket, a suitcase he'd already packed, and left. The door closed with a soft click, but to me, it was like the entire world collapsed that night. I stayed alone in our house, the one we'd decorated together, filled with plans and laughter. I sat on the living room floor, lights off, and cried until there was nothing left. I wasn't crying for him, not at first. I was crying for myself, for the woman I'd been, who no longer existed. Because yes, I cheated. Not once, not with one person. I did it with two of his best friends, Javier and Diego, and I didn't regret it, not at first. When I was with them, I felt alive, desired, like I was finally the protagonist of my own life. But now, it all feels like poison still burning through me. The rumors spread quickly. Someone shared a video Javier recorded without my knowledge. I don't know how it reached Andres, but it did. And not just him. It spread like wildfire at work, among friends, to family. My mother called one morning, her voice trembling with anger and shame. "Valeria, how could you do this to Andres? To us?" My father said nothing, but his silence was worse. At work, the stares and whispers followed me everywhere. A week later, I was fired with a vague excuse about restructuring. But I knew the truth. No one wanted the scandalous woman around. Now I'm here, in this apartment lent by a distant cousin, the only one who still speaks to me. I have nothing. No home, no husband, no dignity. The hate messages keep coming, though I no longer read them. Sometimes, I think about disappearing, getting on a bus to a place where no one knows my name. But I can't. Not because I don't want to, but because I don't know how to start over when everything I was stayed in that house. With him. I don't expect forgiveness or understanding. But I need to tell my story, because if I don't, I feel like I'll explode. This isn't an excuse or a defense. It's just my truth, raw and broken. Like me. A year ago, my life seemed perfect. Andres and I had been married for 5 years, the couple everyone envied. He was tall, with a smile that could light up a room, and green eyes that always seemed to know what you were thinking. He worked as an engineer for a construction company, and though he sometimes came home tired, he never stopped being the attentive man who won my heart. I worked part-time at a clothing store in the mall, a simple job, but I liked it because it let me chat with people, laugh, and feel like I had my own space. That we lived in a house on the city's outskirts, the kind that looks like it belongs in a magazine. It had a small garden with rose bushes. Andres tended with a patience I never had. On weekends, he'd wake up early to water them while I made breakfast, coffee, toast, strawberry jam. Then we'd sit on the porch, talking about silly things, trips we wanted to take, names we'd give our kids someday. Everything was so normal, so perfect. On Friday nights, Andres played soccer with his friends, a tradition from before we met. I was fine with it. I liked that he had his own space, that he wasn't one of those men who need to be glued to their wife all the time. Sometimes, after the game, a few guys came over for beers, and I'd join in, laughing at their jokes, feeling part of their world. Javier and Diego were the closest to us. Javier was the life of the party, always with a funny story or a suggestive comment that made everyone laugh. Diego was quieter, but when he spoke, his words carried weight. They were like brothers to Andres, friends to me. Or so I thought. But even in that perfect life, something gnawed at me. Andres wasn't bad. He was everything a woman could want. Loving, faithful, patient. He left me notes before work, held me at night, listened when I had a bad day. But after 5 years, the passion had faded. I still loved him with all my heart, but the desire, that spark that makes you tremble, had become comfortable, predictable. We made love, yes, but it was like following a script. Same movements, same whispers, same bed. And though I'm ashamed to admit it, I wanted more. I wanted to feel desired, not just loved. I wanted someone to look at me like I was the only woman in the world, to touch me like they couldn't hold back. I wanted adventure, risk, something to remind me I was alive. I didn't tell Andres, not because I didn't trust him, but because I didn't know how to explain it. How do you tell the man who loves you that, even though he's done nothing wrong, you feel like you're fading? So I kept quiet, and that silence was the first step toward disaster. It started with Javier, though it wasn't planned. Javier was always a flirt, the kind who makes comments that toe the line between joking and something more. After games, he'd find ways to compliment me. "Valeria, that dress looks amazing on you." "Oh, Andres, if you don't watch this woman, someone else will." I'd laugh, play along, because I liked the attention. It made me feel seen, desired, something I hadn't felt with Andres in a while, though it pains me to admit. At first, it was harmless, but Javier's comments grew bolder. One night, while washing dishes after a barbecue, he whispered, "If I were Andres, I wouldn't leave you alone for a second." His voice was low, intimate, and I felt a heat I shouldn't have. I stepped away, nervous, but I didn't say anything. I didn't stop him, and that was enough for him to know he could keep going. Diego was different. He wasn't one for jokes or empty compliments. He was serious, intense, with a gaze that seemed to pierce through you. One night after a game, he stayed over for beers with Andres and me. Andres went to bed early, as he often did before work, and Diego and I kept talking in the living room. I don't know how it happened, but we got personal, things you don't tell just anyone. He said his last relationship ended because his ex didn't understand him, that he always felt alone, even with someone. And I foolishly opened up too. I told him I sometimes felt my life with Andres was too perfect, that something was missing, though I didn't know what. "Valeria, you deserve more than this," he said, looking into my eyes. I don't know if he meant Andres, my life, or something else, but those words stuck with me. They made me feel like someone saw my emptiness, understood what I couldn't name, that I should have changed the subject, stopped him. But I didn't. That night, when he walked me to the door, his hand brushed mine, and I didn't pull away. The first time I crossed the line was with Javier after a barbecue at our house. Andres had too much to drink and passed out on the couch. Javier offered to help clean the kitchen, and amid laughs and accidental brushes, we ended up kissing against the counter. It was quick, intense, like we were stealing something. And we were. His hands were everywhere, and I didn't stop him. I felt alive, powerful, like I was finally in control. I didn't think about Andres, didn't think about anything. I just wanted more. With Diego, it was different, more deliberate. He texted me one day, "I need to talk to you. It's important." We met at a cafe far from home. He said he couldn't stop thinking about me, that he knew it was wrong but couldn't help it. I should have stopped him there, but I didn't. We ended up in his car in an empty parking lot. It was slower, more intimate, and that made it worse. It wasn't just desire. It felt like, for a moment, I cared that I didn't plan it, I swear. But once it started, I couldn't stop. Javier made me feel wild, free. Diego made me feel understood, deep. And Andres, he was still the perfect man, the one who held me at night, asked about my day. But I wasn't the same. I was falling into an abyss, each step taking me further from the woman I'd been. Living a double life is like walking a tightrope, knowing you'll fall any moment. In the mornings, I kissed Andres in the kitchen, made his coffee, told him I loved him. Then, when he left for work, I'd open my phone to Javier's messages, photos, videos, words that made me blush. "You're mine," he'd write, and I'd laugh, because I liked the idea, even though I knew it was a lie. Diego was subtler but just as dangerous. His messages were long, almost poetic, talking about how he felt, how I was different. And I, foolishly, believed him. The encounters became more frequent. With Javier, it was quick, almost animalistic, in his apartment. Cheap motels, anywhere we could be alone. With Diego, it was different. He wanted to talk, connect, as if what we had was more than a mistake. We met in parks, cafes, always ending up in his car or somewhere no one would see us. I did things with Javier and Diego I didn't do with Andres. Not because I didn't love him, but because I didn't want him to stop seeing me as worthy if I let him into that part of me. Each time I came home, I'd look in the mirror and not recognize the woman staring back. But I couldn't stop. It was like a drug, and I was hooked. Then the blackmail started, not for money, but emotions. Javier would say things like, "If you don't come tonight, I'll tell Andres everything." Diego was crueler, more manipulative. "If you leave me, Valeria, I don't know what I'll do. You're the only thing keeping me sane." And I, weak, gave in. Not out of fear at first, but because part of me wanted it, craved the feeling of being desired. Each encounter another dose of the life I thought I was missing. But lies have a price. I started slipping with Andres, distant, irritable, always finding excuses to leave the house. When he asked what was wrong, I'd say I was stressed from work, needed space. And he, being the man he was, accepted it. He gave me space, held me, told me everything would be okay. But nothing was okay. I was destroying everything, and he had no idea. The first sign things were spiraling was a drunken 3 a.m. text from Javier. I uploaded the video to my cloud. "If you want it deleted, you know what to do." My heart stopped. I didn't know he'd recorded anything, didn't know he held something so dangerous. I begged him to delete it, promised anything, but he just laughed. "Relax, Valeria, it's just for me." But it wasn't. That damned video was the beginning of the end that I don't know how it happened, but the video reached Andres. Maybe Javier shared it by accident. Maybe someone hacked his phone. Or maybe Diego sent it in a jealous rage. I'll never know. All I know is that one night, Andres came home earlier than usual. I was in the kitchen, making dinner, when I saw him standing in the doorway, phone in hand. He didn't say anything, just looked at me, and I knew something was wrong. "Valeria," he said in a voice I didn't recognize. "What is this?" He showed me the screen, and there I was, with Javier, in a moment I should never have lived. It wasn't just a video, it was my betrayal, exposed, raw, undeniable. I tried to speak, to explain, but the words wouldn't come. I could only stare, watching the man I loved break before me. He didn't yell, didn't smash anything. He just set the phone on the table and said, "I don't know who you are." Then he went to our bedroom, pulled out a suitcase, and started packing. I tried to stop him, begged, cried, told him I loved him, that I didn't know why I'd done it, that I was sorry. But it wasn't true. I wasn't sorry, not then. I could still feel the heat of those encounters, the adrenaline, the pleasure. And he knew it. He looked at me like he could see through me, like he knew the woman before him wasn't the one he'd loved. Before leaving, he left a note on the table. "I'm leaving with what's left of me." And that was it. The door closed, and my world ended. But that wasn't the worst. The worst came after, when the video spread. Someone, I don't know who, shared it in a WhatsApp group, and it passed to more people, more groups, more lives. Andres' friends, the ones not involved, found out. His family shut me out. My own mother called and said, "Valeria, how could you?" My father's silence was worse. At work, the rumors spread like fire. A week later, I was fired with a vague excuse about company policy. But I knew the truth. No one wanted the scandalous woman around. Javier and Diego vanished. They didn't answer my messages. I never saw them again. They left me alone to face the consequences of something we all did. And Andres, he changed his number, his address, everything. I saw him once from a distance, at a mall, laughing with another woman as if I'd never existed. I stood there, heart in my throat, watching him move on while I was stuck. The months that followed were hell. The house was sold, the money split, and I was left with just enough to rent this miserable apartment. My few friends drifted away. Some said they didn't want drama. Others just stopped responding. My family barely speaks to me. My cousin Luciana, who let me this place, is the only one who still looks at me with some pity, but even she avoids me sometimes. The video kept circulating. I got messages from unknown numbers, insults, disgusting propositions. Once, someone left an envelope at my door with a screenshot from the video and a note. "Everyone knows who you are." I don't know who it was, but I didn't need to. It was the world, reminding me of my mistake. Another envelope arrived one day, containing divorce papers and a USB drive. I plugged it in, trembling, and there was the video with a handwritten note. "You did this." I didn't recognize the handwriting, but I didn't need to. It was from Andres. He wanted me to remember, to never forget what I destroyed. I tried to rebuild my life, but every step was like walking on broken glass. I got a job at a cafe, but it lasted less than a month. Customers recognized me, whispered, and the manager said I didn't fit. I tried going out, meeting new people, but judgmental stares followed me. Once at a bar, a guy approached and said, "You're the one from the video, right?" I ran out, tears in my eyes, feeling like I'd never escape. Sometimes, I wake up at night, sweating, dreaming of Andres. In my dreams, he forgives me, holds me, says everything will be okay. But then I open my eyes, alone in this bed that isn't mine, in this life I don't recognize. And I know there's no forgiveness, not for me that it's been months, almost a year, and I'm still here, trapped in the wreckage of my life. Sometimes I try to justify it. I tell myself I just wanted to feel alive, that Andres should have noticed something was missing, that Javier and Diego manipulated me. But deep down, I know the truth. I did it because I wanted to, because I was selfish, because I thought I could have it all without paying the price that I remember something Andres said when we were dating. "Don't betray me, Valeria, because if you do, I won't recover." Back then, it seemed like an exaggeration, romantic, almost poetic. But now I understand. He didn't recover. I saw it in his eyes that last night, the way he looked at me, like I'd killed something inside him. But I didn't recover either. The difference is, I brought this on myself. Sometimes, I think about writing to him, begging for forgiveness, telling him I love him, always will. But I know it's pointless. He's somewhere else, with a new life, with someone who didn't betray him. And I'm here, with my memories, my mistakes, and a weight I'll never shake that I don't know what will happen to me, if I'll ever find a way to forgive myself, to move on. For now, I can only write this, tell my truth, even if no one reads it, even if no one believes me. Because if I don't, I feel like I'll disappear. And maybe, after all, that's what I deserve.